Dear ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much for joining us for today's event, and it is dedicated to the presentation of Ukraine Road PPP program. My name is Maria Rybko.
Мене звати Рибко, я заступник виконавчого директора Центру економічної стратегії в Україні, і я з честю роблю цю презентацію сьогодні. Дякую всім за те, що приєднали до нас. І зараз у нас невеличкі технічні деталі, будь ласка. Виберіть кнопку перекладу внизу, виберіть мову, яка є зручною для вас, українська чи англійська. Написано російська, але це буде український переклад або англійську мову. Отже, сьогодні у нас буде декілька спікерів, які представлять новий інструмент приватних інвестицій в український дорожній сектор. І це спільний проект Укравтодор і Міністерства інфраструктури України та Групи Світового банку. І перше, я маю честь представити нашого першого спікера, міністра інфраструктури України, пана Криклія. Пане Криклій, слово за вами. Вітаю всіх, дуже дякую. Це великий день, я дуже радий, тому що зрештою ми, пані та панове, ми починаємо наш проект концесії ПП у дорожній інфраструктурі.
First of all, I want to say many thanks to the World Bank Group experts and JF as well, because you have put it too much efforts to develop this program, to prepare, and today we can show and results and move forward. Special thanks, of course, to the IFCOs and to Ukravtodor for the assistance to connect this event and to gather all the participants together. And I want to show that we are opening entirely new page for the PPP projects, because it's not only about the running forward with road construction. You know that it's one of the top priorities for our president and for our cabinet of ministers and for Minister of Infrastructure as well. This year we're building over 4,000 kilometers of the state roads, and we have absolutely recorded for the amount of the budget for the state fund. And these particular concession projects, PPP projects in the road concession, are ready to assist to build even more, to have more ambitious plans, and to succeed in another area for the concession projects, not only with the seaports, where we have started very successfully this
концесію портів, яку ми розпочали.
Pilot concession projects, but to make the wider number of concession projects and to show some numbers of expected amount of investments in the road concession. In the medium term, we expect that program will attract over $9 billion US dollars from private investment to rehabilitation and maintenance and road building for over 4,500 of kilometers of state roads. And of course, it's not, I want to highlight once more, it's not only about building more, just building more effective, not to wasting all the road fund in one time, but to have the possibility to attract investments, to attract investors, to spend money of taxpayers more effective, and to build more in parallel with state budget, with spatial budget, and of course with concessionaires. And we will be very happy that investors and concessionaires will share the know-how in the road construction with us, because for us it's just a green field. and it's just the beginning. And of course, we will move forward much faster with your assistance and your help. Just a year ago, we adopted the law for the concession. Thanks to this law, we had the chance and we signed concession agreements for the seaports. We have few changes, need to make some changes to adopt the law on next level to have possibility more effective to cooperate with concessionaires in the road concessions. And we are currently in this process to organize this legislative framework for PPP projects also in the road concession. So we need actually amend the budget code law to improve land expropriation law and to make the payments from the road fund to concessionaires possible with the new law adoption. And our Verkhovna Rada, our parliament, are ready to make this needed steps and to vote for such law adoption. At present, our ministry, together with PPP Office Pilno and the PPP agency, under the Ministry of Economy, we are putting many efforts to ensure the successful delivery of this road PPP program. And our colleagues and international consultants from World Bank assisting us to deliver the result we are expecting in next 2 years. So actually now we have the pre-feasibility study, and my colleagues will share with you much more information. We have 6 particular road frames where we are ready to organize this first 6 pilot PPP projects. We need the law implementation, but we will do it as fast as possible.
Зробити це якомога швидше. Я сподіваюсь, ми будемо надавати допомогу з нашої сторони, як ми вже...
Because we want to attract much more effective managers to road building, and we want to succeed with you together. So, dear colleagues, thank you. I want to share the floor with you. I hope that you will provide the particular information about this pre-feasibility study and this PPP projects for the road PPP program. And be confident that we are ready to move fast, not to waste the time, because Ukraine have wasted too much time, and we now need to move faster than everybody before. So keep safe and let's move forward together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. It's great to hear indeed that Ukraine is ready to move fast, and that the road sector is one of the key priorities for the Minister of Infrastructure, and about these ambitious plans as well. So now I invite you all to watch the short video about Ukraine road PPP program, and I ask our administrators, please turn it on.
Despite significant challenges, Ukraine continues to transform its economy to emerge as a dynamic investment hub. Through its association agreement with the European Union, the country is improving its legislative framework and business-enabling environment. Transport infrastructure is one of the key sectors of Ukraine's economy, accounting for 6% of the country's GDP. As the second-largest country in Europe, Ukraine relies on its transport sector to propel the nation's economic growth trajectory. Road infrastructure, the backbone of Ukraine's transport ecosystem, requires massive investment. Around 90% of the road network needs improvement. The recently created Road Fund provides a stable source of revenue for road rehabilitation and maintenance. As the government aims to connect the country through modern highways, several thousand kilometers of roads have already been upgraded under the Great Construction Initiative. However, public investment alone is not able to bridge the investment gap. That is why, with the support of the IFC and in partnership with the Global Infrastructure Facility and the World Bank, Ukraine is developing a systematic approach to engage the private sector through a public-private partnership model. The model will be implemented through a phased program of PPP projects covering several thousand kilometers of national highways operated by private investors under long-term performance-based contracts. Road PPPs will mobilize much-needed private investment and ensure sustainability of Ukraine's road infrastructure. At the core of the program is a specific type of PPP based on availability payments. Roads upgraded and operated under this model provide an optimal combination of quality service for users, predictability for the state budget, and attractive returns for private investors. This type of procurement is widely and successfully adopted by governments around the world. Along with their international partners, the Ministry of Infrastructure of Ukraine and Ukravtodor assessed almost 2,000 road segments and selected 21 potential PPP projects. The program is expected to be implemented in 3 phases over the next few years. As Ukraine continues its push to emerge as a top destination for investment, it is looking at PPPs as an effective means to achieve this goal. In the summer of 2020, the government signed 2 landmark agreements with prominent international investors who will implement the country's first long-term concessions in the port sector. A phased program of well-structured road PPP projects will be Ukraine's next big success story. Partner with Ukraine today for the sake of better roads tomorrow.
Great. And now I want to pass the floor to our honorable speakers from the World Bank Group who supported these initiatives. I invite Jason Palmer. He is IFC's regional manager for Ukraine, Belarus, and Moldova. Jason, please.
Yes, thank you very much. And I really like the way the minister framed the discussion, which is to move fast and to move safely. And to do so, we're going to need better roads, and why we're all here today. So again, thank you to the minister, and thank you all who have joined for this very important discussion. And it's great to be here, although obviously I think all of us would prefer to be in person, but given the circumstances, at least we can meet in this virtual format. Why are we here? Again, I think the minister outlined it well, but it is, we're here to come up with mechanisms to modernize Ukraine's roads. And this is important because according to the World Health Organization, approximately 1.4 million people are dying each year on the world's roads, and millions more are injured because of unsafe road infrastructure. Facing increased needs for better transport infrastructure, governments are recognizing that modern, well-maintained roads are key to sustain social and economic development, and Ukraine is no exception. As mentioned, I represent IFC, International Finance Corporation, a member of the World Bank Group, and the largest global development finance institution focused on emerging markets. Since 2004, IFC has been a trusted advisor to governments on structuring 147 public-private partnerships that will lead to an expected $33 billion in private financing, helping grow economies and create jobs. And we're pleased to be actively applying this expertise here in Ukraine. We're working with the Ministry of Infrastructure of Ukraine and the recently created Public-Private Partnership Agency to develop bankable PPP projects in critical sectors: ports, railways, airports, roads, energy, and healthcare. Our aim is to channel private money and know-how into a series of pilot projects that will serve as a template for future PPP projects. IFC welcomes the significant progress in developing the public-private partnership framework in Ukraine, The minister spoke of the law on concessions, the amended PPP law, creation of a PPP agency, and the successfully completed concessions of Kherson and Oblast seaports. These projects are bringing in nearly $137 million of investment. All of this serves to promote Ukraine's investment attractiveness and to stimulate investor interest. The recent port concessions were not only one of the largest foreign direct investments in the Ukrainian port industry, but they were also the country's first concession tenders prepared and implemented according to international best practice. As the next step in the port sector, in cooperation with EBRD, we will help the ministry prepare and implement the first concession of a container terminal in Ukraine's Chornomorsk. As part of the new investment program in Ukraine's transport sector, we are also looking at potential PPP opportunities in rail. With Global Infrastructure Facility, we have just completed a preliminary analysis of potential projects and modernization of rail stations that can result in over $150 million of private investment. And I'm pleased that today, IFC, together with World Bank colleagues, will present the study that will serve as a baseline for the public-private program in Ukraine's road sector. These 6 properly structured projects are expected to bring in nearly $2 billion of private investment over the next 3 years in rehabilitation and maintenance of existing roads. The projects will benefit thousands of people who use the roads for long distance travel and locals who commute to jobs, reducing their travel time and transportation costs. The improved network will also boost agribusiness, manufacturing, real estate, and tourism development, and will help Ukraine become more competitive. As part of a strategic collaboration between Ukraine's Ministry of Infrastructure, Ukravtodor, and IFC, we plan to continue supporting preparation of these projects. IFC will help Ukravtodor competitively tender and implement the first road PPP projects designed in accordance with international best practice. IFC, as well as the World Bank, is here to support the government in its efforts to shape a uniform understanding of PPPs and contribute to identification and implementation of these projects. Boosting the country's transportation sector is on top of IFC's agenda for this region. We stand ready to support the government of Ukraine with attracting new private investments to solve the country's infrastructure challenges. Thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to working with all of you to realize this ambitious goal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jason. It's glad to hear that such a reputable organization as the IFC supports this, and that Ukraine is not alone in its infrastructural development agenda. And so please let me invite to a speech Baher El Hiftawi. I'm sorry if I spelled it incorrectly. He's the transport program leader for Ukraine at the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Baher, please, the floor is yours. Could you please unmute yourself?
Thank you, Maria. You pronounced it perfectly. Minister Krikli, ladies and gentlemen, it is a privilege for the World Bank, for IBRD to be here again at this very special event. And I am glad that I'm speaking right after my colleague and friend, Jason Palmer, because you know, the comparative advantages that the IFC and the World Bank bring together, the strength of both institutions enable us to provide a complete integrated solution for improving infrastructure systems and services for Ukrainians. Perhaps a recent example that both the minister and Jason have touched on is the collaboration and the concessioning of the ports of Kherson and Oblast, where IBRD conducted a lot of the initial analytical work that paved the work for IFC to come in and support the procurement and develop the procurement of these concessions. The collaboration between the Ministry of Infrastructure and the World Bank Group and GIF helped lead to concluding these successful transactions. And we are all confident, I believe, in saying that there will be more to come in the port sector. This type of collaboration between the IFC and the World Bank, the collaboration within the different institutions of the World Bank Group, can work and identify opportunities in different sectors in transport. And as Jason was saying, right now, we are looking at what we can do to, again, identify opportunities for the PPP sector in railways. Doing the proper analytical work first, and then allowing for the concessioning to happen on sound footing. But let me get back to today's topic. We're here to talk about roads. Ukraine has a vast road network, 47,000 kilometers of international and national roads, and over 120,000 of local roads. The video that you just were showing, Maria, showing that 90% of these roads are in bad shape. They require rehabilitation and in some cases reconstruction. It's a massive and extensive effort. We don't need to spend much time here with this audience to talk about the importance of the road sector for sustainable economic growth. I think we all can understand that. The World Bank has been supporting the road sector. We have 3 operations right now with over 800 million. And it's important, and I like very much what Jason was talking about, safe roads. Our projects not only support the construction of new roads, but critical sector issues such as road safety and the introduction of intelligent transport system that help avoid the overloading in the system and can also help with the tolling, which is one of the key points I will get to in a minute or so. The government of Ukraine also realizes the importance of the road sector and took a major step in the right direction by introducing the road fund a few years ago to make more public funding available for the road network. And I have to say that this road fund is indeed a well-endowed one. Nevertheless, the revenues in the road fund will not be sufficient to meet the vast needs of the road sector. Therefore, careful prioritization and planning is still essential. And in this regard, the government of Ukraine has made the rehabilitation of strategic roads a top priority, as we have seen in President Zelensky's vision for the Grand Construction Initiative. Embarking on such a grand program makes it a very good time for the government of Ukraine to go down that public-private participation road to benefit from the efficiency that the private sector can bring in construction, rehabilitation, and maintenance. And here I want to mention again, I'm very pleased that Minister Krikli mentioned that. The PPPs are not just to bring the financing. In fact, the primary purpose is to bring the efficiency and make things cheaper and the quality better and bring in the innovation. The bank fully supports the government of Ukraine in its decision to introduce the private sector participation to the sector. The pilot projects that MOE will be undertaking now will provide a good opportunity for launching a larger program to support the government and help it realize its goal. The new concession law will also provide a good basis for the PPP program in the road sector. We hope to build on this successful story and lessons learned from the concessions in the port sector and the collaboration between the Ministry of Infrastructure, the bank group, and the Global Infrastructure Facility to kick off the series of pilot road concessions. There is one point, and now I come to the point I'd like to stress. There is one important point that I would like to raise for the way forward. And this is direct road user charges, or I will say tolling or vignettes. The envisioned pilots are expected to bring in efficiency benefits and will bring in resources, as we've heard, in the billions. It will bring in the innovation of the private sector. It will reduce the overall time life cost for the roads. However, payments for the construction and the maintenance of the roads will be made through availability payments, as was mentioned, as we saw in the presentation. According to such a scheme, when a concessionaire provides certain capacity with certain specifications, which also can address and should include road safety, the concessionaire gets paid and the payments will come out of the state budget. So it is important now to introduce and start the introduction and planning for a tolling or vignette system where the road users are paying directly for the use. Such a system will not only be economically efficient, where users are paying for a service that they are receiving, but it will also free some of the road fund sources to be used where we cannot be using, where the government cannot use tolling. Implementing such a system requires a lot of technical preparations to identify the most suitable systems and models, taking into account financial, social, and political considerations. It will require legislative and regulatory changes, no doubt, and large communication campaigns because it's introducing something that is not there. I also want to say that probably Ukraine is one of the few middle-income countries in the world that doesn't have any form of tolling or vignette systems. This process will require time and ideally should start now. I'm pleased to say that the World Bank would be happy to work with MOI, with the Ministry of Infrastructure, and with Ukraftador in the identification, preparation, and development of a system for road charging. It would be possible to include this activity under the additional financing that the bank is now considering for the bank-supported road sector development project, the ongoing operation. Finally, let me say we look forward as the World Bank Group to continue our support with the Ministry of Infrastructure, Ukraftador, and Spilno. Thank you very much, Marie.
Thank you very much, Baher, and thanks to the World Bank and to the IBRD, to the IFC, to everyone who supports us. And now the final introduction. It's not only the government initiative, but it is supported. It has a full support from the presidential office under the Great Construction Initiative, which puts road construction in the heart of governmental economic strategy. And so I will ask our technical team to put on the recording of Kirilo Tymoshenko, who will also make this introduction. He's the deputy head of the Office of the President of Ukraine and the coordinator of the Great Construction Program.
Доброго дня всім. Хотілося б почати.
Hello, everyone. I would like to start
Потребує
that we need large-scale project and solutions, and the Great Construction Program is about comfort of Ukraine. It's about development of
інфраструктури, а й економіки. Цього року спільними зусиллями нам вдалося, і ми зараз вже виходимо на фінальну, можна сказати, пряму, це зробити 4000 кілометрів доріг,
build 4,000 kilometers of
будувати 100
roads, and build 100 schools and kindergartens,
об'єктів, а також 10 приймальних відділень.
and 110 receptions of the hospitals.
Можна сказати, феномен, і
It's a phenomenon.
дійсно прорив для України.
It's a breakthrough for Ukraine.
У нас є дуже
We have ambitious plans.
кількість кілометрів до
We want to build more and more roads in Ukraine.
Як садочки, дитячі, так і школи.
So it not includes only kindergartens, but and schools.
Також до великого будівництва додаються
Great construction means also
замки, відбудування
reconstruction of cultural centers, monuments of history, etc., etc.
Ми відбудуємо вже
And we will build next year.
Аеропорт Дніпро, він почне будувати.
Airport of Dnipro next year. Also, we will rebuild the regional airports in Ukraine.
Це дасть поштовх для України в цілому.
It will give an impetus for Ukraine.
Це великий мультиплікатор для нашої економіки. Завдяки
It will be a multiplier for our economy.
Що якщо б не було програми президента велике будівництво цього року,
Unless we had a great construction program,
ця програма дала
this program gave strong impetus
наступного року
for the next year. And next year,
дуже бажаємо співпрацювати.
We indeed hope to cooperate with IFIs for the construction of our roads. I hope this will develop, and we will have more and more PPP projects in the road. We will help to have in-depth cooperation with the business, private sector. And next year, together we will be restoring road infrastructure of Ukraine. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye.
Okay, so so we are done. And, it's great to see that Ukraine road PPP program is really a part of a wider developmental program, and it has support in different stages of this initiative. Now, again, I invite you to watch the short video just before we move on to more detailed presentations of the program itself. The video is highlighting the benefits of Ukraine PPP program for different stakeholders, actually drivers who use the roads, the government of Ukraine, and the future concessionaries. Please turn on the video. Thank you all for watching this and for joining this discussion again. And now it's time to deep into the details. And I would like to give the floor to Taras Baychuk of the Spilno PPP Management Office and Oleg Kudashov from the IFC, who will present the program in details. Taras and Oleg, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you so much. Dear ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Taras Baychuk and I'm head of PPP Project Preparation Unit Spilno under the Ministry of Infrastructure of Ukraine. Together with my colleague from International Finance Corporation, Oleg Kudashov, I will take the next few minutes to describe in detail the most important elements of the Ukraine Road PPP program. Before I hand it over to Oleg to talk about the key figures of the program, a few words about its objectives and the key differences between PPPs and traditional public procurement. Why have Ministry of Infrastructure and Ukravtodor decided to implement a program of road PPPs? First, although public financing of the road works is growing strong, on its own, it's not enough to rehabilitate the entire network of 47,000 kilometers within just a few years. At the same time, private investors and banks have tremendous financial resources which can be deployed under the right conditions. We want to create conditions under which Ukraine's road will become a priority destination for infrastructure investors. Second, private sector is inherently more experienced, efficient, and innovative when it comes to preparation and implementation of the infrastructure projects. Studies from different countries have demonstrated that projects built and operated by the private sector experience fewer and less severe cost overruns, time delays, and other operational problems than projects developed by the public sector. We want Ukraine to benefit from efficiencies and know-how which private investors in the road sector possess. And finally, Ukraine's road construction and maintenance market is still relatively underdeveloped, following years of stagnation. On the other hand, road PPPs have been developed around the world for more than 30 years, which has resulted in the creation of a global industry of project sponsors, developers, creditors, insurers, and some contractors. A long-term program of well-structured road PPPs will allow Ukraine to become a proper member of this industry and will build up the local market accordingly. What are some of the key differences between PPPs and traditional procured projects. First, whereas under the public procurement financing for the project is raised by the public sector and becomes part of sovereign or guaranteed public debt, in PPPs, it is the private investor who raises financing. As a rule, 70 or 80% of financing comes from lenders, and the remaining 20 or 30% from the private partner. So there is a significant amount of equity at risk. Second, under traditional procurement, the public sector starts paying contractors immediately. If there is no payment, the project does not get implemented. On the other hand, in a PPP, the public sector starts paying only after the private partner builds and commissions the project, while payments can be spread over time, allowing the state to improve more kilometers in a shorter period of time. Third, under traditional procurement, the construction contractor is focused on building the road, earning its profit, and moving to next project. In a structure like this, there is no incentive for the constructor to build the road in a way that will minimize its operational and maintenance costs. In a PPP, because some private partners, the same private partner must build, operate, and maintain the road for 20 or more years, it is incentivized to apply the life cycle cost management approach to maximize its profitability. This, in turn, optimizes total project costs over 20+ years and results in saving to the public sector. And finally, perhaps the most important difference between these approaches is the fact that whereas under public procurement, all project risks remain with the public sector, in a PPP, the private partner assumes many project risks which have real financial value, such as design, financing, construction, and O&M. So here we are talking about a DBFOM contract. Thus, if the private partner doesn't manage to complete rehabilitation of the road within its original budget and on time, it will have to pay for the cost increases and delays. And now I would like to pass the floor to my colleague from International Finance Corporation, Oleg Kudashov.
Thank you, Taras. Ladies and gentlemen, it's very nice to welcome you here at during this presentation. I know a lot of you from working on past projects successfully and not successfully. And we certainly hope here at IFC and the World Bank Group that as Ukraine launches this program of road PPP projects, we can continue working together and we will have successes in PPP projects here in Ukraine. For those of you who don't know me, I am a Senior Investment Officer at IFC in the Transaction Advisory Services Department, which helps the public sector prepare and implement PPP and concession projects. So let me please quickly talk about some of the key features of this program that has been worked on by the Ukravtodor Ministry of Infrastructure and IFC and the World Bank Group and a whole range of technical, commercial, and legal experts over the past few months. The first key feature of this program is the phasing. This program preliminarily will consist of over 20 individual projects, which have been identified by our team and have been carefully reviewed and confirmed by Ukravtodor and the ministry. In total, as you have already heard, these projects represent over 4,500 kilometers of roads of various categories throughout different parts of Ukraine. Our high-level estimates of capital investment required to rehabilitate these road sections are on the order of $8 to 10 billion US. Now, it's clear that this is a large program and that such a large amount of projects should not be brought to the market at once. Therefore, we foresee that the program will be divided in 3 phases. Phase 1 will include 6 projects, which will be presented shortly by the CEO of Ukravtodor. Phase 2 will consist of another 7 to 9 projects, and phase 3 of another 8 to 10 projects. So in total, we will be targeting about 20 to 25 projects over a period of several years. Phase 1 projects will be further divided in 2 groups because we believe that even 6 projects brought to market at once is too much for Ukraine, which is a country which has not done road PPPs in the past. Therefore, we plan to select 2 or 3 pilot projects which will be prepared and implemented first. The decision about which projects will be included from the list of from the list of the 6 pilot projects will be made in the coming weeks. We have not made that decision yet. Once we identify the 2 or 3 pilot projects, the remaining phase 1 projects will be implemented with a 6 or 9 month lag. So preliminarily, we foresee that as the tenders for the first 2 or 3 pilot projects are launched, preparation of the remaining phase 1 projects will commence. Our objective is that all 6 phase 1 projects will be prepared and implemented over a 3-year period between 2021 and 2023. Phase 2 projects will be identified toward the end of this period, closer to in a couple of years, and we will take into account the actual situation with road rehabilitation and construction in Ukraine between now and then. Because the situation is dynamic, and you've heard from colleagues from the President's office that there is an unprecedented activity in the area of road construction. Preparation of phase 2 projects will commence after successful completion of phase 1 pilot projects, because we want to show to the market and to potential investors and lenders that this concept works. It is foreseen that phase 2 projects will be also implemented over a 3-year period between 2023 and 2025. And finally, phase 3 projects will be defined and implemented starting from year 2025. So this phased approach has been selected specifically and in order to achieve 3 important objectives. First, we don't want to overwhelm the market. And instead, we want to ensure that the capacity of potential private partners, lenders, who are also very important, insurance providers, subcontractors, equipment and material suppliers, and everyone who is involved in this sector will be sufficient and will be gradually built up over time to deal with the increasing number of projects. Second, we think that this approach provides potential investors with a clear view of how the market will grow. We know that it is important for investors, especially those who are not present in the market, to give an opportunity and a clear vision so that they can make long-term plans based on the pipeline of projects and they understand the timeline for their implementation. And we want to provide that. And finally, we want to ensure that there is sufficient competition among potential bidders and avoid a situation where the same handful of companies bid for and win all tenders. The next important feature that I want to cover is the fact that this project is primarily about brownfield. So these are existing roads. Phase 1 of the program will consist of only brownfield projects, whereas greenfield projects, new roads, might be introduced slowly during phase 2 and more aggressively during phase 3. There are also several reasons for this decision. First, as we've already heard from the minister and from Bahir, Ukraine's road network is actually quite extensive already. And it's only with a few exceptions that it already has the potential to provide sufficient connectivity and acceptable level of service for the level of existing traffic. In other words, there is not, the focus of the program should be on rehabilitation and then subsequent preservation of the already existing roads through proper operation and maintenance, rather than on construction of new roads. Second, brownfield projects, in our opinion, have a lower risk profile compared to greenfield projects due to factors such as there is more limited need for land expropriation and resettlement, and also lower initial capital intensity of works, and therefore lower capital investment costs, and the risks of significant cost overruns and construction delays. We know that the private sector is more efficient in this, but we still nevertheless want to minimize the risks, at least initially. For those of you who will be wondering whether there will be any new construction, I can say that phase one projects, of course, will have elements of new construction, and these elements could be bypasses around towns, construction of additional traffic lanes, and similar interventions. Nevertheless, the majority of capital works will be focused on comprehensive rehabilitation, resurfacing of existing roads, as well as on implementation of proper safety and traffic management infrastructure, such as interchanges, pedestrian bridges, signage, lighting, and so on. In addition to the fact that the program will be phased and it will be focused on brownfield projects, we also thought very carefully about the initial investment requirements. We believe that it is very important that projects, especially pilot projects, are properly sized in terms of initial capital investment. They must not be too small so that they're attractive to potential investors, but at the same time, they should not be too large so that the lenders can finance them and potential private partners don't perceive the risk as being too high. At the same time, keeping in mind always the objective of this program, which is to create better roads for the users, for the drivers in Ukraine and for the Ukrainian state, we believe that these projects have to be affordable to the public sector. And the share of these projects in the overall sector funding, road sector funding in Ukraine must be manageable. Based on our experience and based on global research, we know that the optimal project size in the context of road PPPs is between $300 and $450 million. At the same time, we're also here in a nascent market, and we need to carefully build up the capacity of this market so that it can cope with the financing and construction requirements of these large projects. With this in mind, we believe that phase one projects should range in size between $200 and $350 million. Whereas when we come to phase two and phase three, project size can gradually increase and go perhaps up to $400 million in phase two and $500 million and potentially more in phase three. Bringing this back to phase one, we believe that this approach to project sizing essentially means that phase one will require between $1.5 to $2 billion of capital investment. And we think that this should be manageable from the point of view of raising debt financing from lenders and equity financing from private partners and sponsors. Remember, we're talking about at least a 3-year period. And we think that this level of financing will also be affordable to the public sector. The next, I think, very important feature of this program, and perhaps the critical feature of this program that you have already heard about, is the fact that it will be an availability payment structure. We all know that one of the key determining factors of a successful PPP project is the appropriate selection of a revenue model, where the revenue for the private partner will come from. The choice of whether the investor will collect revenue directly from road users as opposed to receiving payments from the budget depends on several factors, of course. Such as, for example, are the road users familiar with tolls in the country? Are there successful precedents of road PPPs and concessions in the market? Is there sufficient and extensive historical and reliable historical data about traffic levels? And also, how does the budgeting process work? So having analyzed these factors in the context of Ukraine, we have identified that the availability payment model is the most appropriate revenue model for this PPP program, especially for phase one. As most of you probably know, availability payments are payments that are paid by the public authority to the private partner on an annual or semi-annual basis throughout the concession period. We expect that in these types of projects, availability payments will start being paid after the road is rehabilitated by the private partner. and will be paid as long as the road is available. In other words, if the drivers can use it. Amounts of availability payments will be determined during the tender. At least this is our preliminary expectation, that the bidder who requests the lowest amount of availability payment will win the tender. And these amounts will then be fixed in the PPP contract. We know that the availability payment revenue model is widely used in Europe and other parts of the world because generally it is perceived as a lower risk model by investors and lenders compared to the concession model in which the private partner relies on tolls from users as the main source of revenue. Therefore, in our opinion, the availability payment model should result in the lowest cost of financing and the highest probability of being financed by lenders. And it should also be attractive to potential lenders who know that they will not be exposed to the risk of insufficient traffic or the user's unwillingness to pay tolls. It is possible that after a robust market of PPP projects is established in Ukraine, and in case road user charges are introduced in time, some future projects may be structured under a different model. But for now, at this stage, it is expected that all phase 1 projects will be implemented under the availability payment structure. And finally, the last important feature of this program is, of course, not new to those of you who work in this space. It's the performance-based contract. This means that the private partner will have contractually defined performance standards, which he will have to meet and maintain. These standards will relate to the quality of road infrastructure, the level of service provided to road users, quality and timeliness of reporting about the project's performance, and so on. It's very important also that should the private partner fail to meet some of these standards, it will become subject to penalties and the amounts of availability payments will be reduced accordingly. Performance-based contracts will protect the interests of road users, of course, and the public authorities. And at the same time, they will provide incentives to the private partners to properly operate and maintain the roads. So these are the key features of this program. And now I will pass the floor back to Taras, who will talk to you about the road fund in Ukraine and also the developments in the legislative arena. Taras, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Oleg. So you mentioned about the availability payments, and now I would like to give you more information about where this availability payments will come from. It's crucial. So we will talk about road fund. The law establishing the road fund became effective in January 2018. The road fund income will come from fuel excise tax, import duty on vehicles, duties on imported petroleum products, vehicles, also excise on vehicles, as well as penalties and charges for the use of road infrastructure. Although Ukraine doesn't have any toll roads yet, toll collection is permitted by the law, and any future toll revenues will be directed to the road fund. So the road fund may be used for financing several types of expenditures: construction, reconstruction, repair and maintenance of the state and local roads, as well as for availability payments for the PPPs, also for debt payments on government loans or against government guarantees for the development and maintenance of the public roads, and actions to ensure traffic safety under the government programs. The total amount of annual dedicated resources in the road fund is around $3 billion. And what is more important, around 99% of the road fund's revenue is effectively tied to the euro and thus protected from local currency devaluation. After debt payments, 60% of the revenue of the road fund revenues will be allocated to Ukravtodor, who will be the grantor in our pilot projects. 35% will be allocated to local administration and local roads, and 5% to road safety. At the same time, the government has developed amendments to the budget code to introduce a ring-fence approach with regards to availability payments. The main idea of the draft law is to prioritize availability payments on par with debt repayments so that they are paid from the road fund before they will be distributed to other needs. So Minister Krikli mentioned about this draft law, and such draft law has been developed by the Ministry of Economy and is among the main government priorities for this year. Now I would like to give you a brief explanation about the legislation framework and its development in recent years. Ukraine's PPP framework was significantly updated in October 2019. A new law on concession, as well as amendments to the PPP law, were developed with the support of EBRD and other IFIs and taking into account best international practices. So new legislation introduced availability-based PPP model, as well as other internationally recognized provisions, such as direct agreement, step-in rights, international dispute resolution, compensation in case of early termination. Moreover, since the adoption of the law on concessions and changes to the law on PPPs in October 2019, the government of Ukraine has adopted all 6 bylaws which are needed for successful implementation of the new PPP projects, which could benefit from the improved legal framework. It is expected that tenders for projects which form part of the road PPP program will be conducted transparently with the support of the World Bank Group and usage of proper platform and procedures, such as equal access to information for all potential bidders, equal opportunities to local and international investors. So Olya and Kherson pilot concession projects in seaports, which have reached commercial close in summer 2020, are proof that PPPs in Ukraine can be successfully implemented in accordance with best international practice. And to enable even more efficient implementation of the program, the government, together with IFIs, is currently in the process of further improving the legislative framework for the upcoming PPP projects, which will make these projects even more attractive to the private partners and lenders. This includes, among others, amending the budget code, as I mentioned, and also improving land expropriation laws in Ukraine. And now I'll ask Oleg to speak about World Bank Group support for the program.
Thank you, Taras. So as we close this particular section of the presentation, before we move on to hear about the pilot projects which have been selected for phase 1, very quickly, I want to mention about the role of the World Bank Group in the support of this program. So you've heard earlier from my colleagues, Jason and Bacher, that the World Bank Group intends to provide comprehensive support to Ukravtodor and the ministry and the government of Ukraine with the preparation and implementation of this program. But what does that mean specifically? I know that in other projects, with those of you who have worked on them previously, there are persistent questions about, will IFC, for example, provide lending to the future concessionaire or private partner? Will MIGA or the World Bank provide risk insurance products and so on and so forth? So I wanted to quickly address this, and if you have further questions, we can discuss this in the Q&A section. Effectively, the World Bank Group is supporting through this program through a concerted effort from all of its entities, IBRD, IFC, and MIGA. This integrated and comprehensive approach on the part of the public policy, which is IBRD, advisory and investment, which is IFC, and political risk insurance, which is MIGA, we believe that it will improve the project preparation quality, and it will maximize the likelihood that these projects achieve their objectives in a sustainable manner and that they're also bankable. When we use the word bankable, we mean that they can be financed by lenders, which is very important. This program and the main contract terms and the risk allocation that they will reflect will benefit from early stage work by IFC to address the key barriers to international private financing. This work will be supported by top local and international consultants who will cover all areas from the regulatory and legal aspects, technical and commercial feasibility, and up to the compliance with relevant social and environmental standards. The future bidding documents and the PPP agreements will be developed with our assistance to reflect a fair and reasonable balance between the interests of the government, sponsors, and future lenders in line with international best practice. These documents will achieve a high degree of bankability, which means, once again, that they will be acceptable to international lenders who will provide financing to the project on a limited recourse basis. This is, once again, project financing. This is money that will be lent by lenders to the specific project company, which is very important in our opinion. And finally, as a result of this comprehensive involvement in the design of the program and the standard program documentation, IFC would likely be able to confirm in principle, subject to its internal approvals, its ability to arrange and participate in the financing of the future project. And this, in our opinion, will significantly reduce uncertainty for the bidders and mobilize other private investors, which will be required to fund such an ambitious program. So at this point, I will stop and we will finish this part of the presentation. Maria, back to you so that we can learn more about the first pilot project.
Yeah, Oleg and Taras, thank you so very much. So now, dear participants, I will invite you to watch the video about the pilot project for stage 1 in a moment, but let me please remind you that we have a Q&A button in the bottom of the Zoom window. So please, those of us who still have not used it, please do, and please ask your questions. We already seen several of them, very interesting. We will address them during the Q&A session, and so please do press the button, ask your questions, and watch the video with us, the video on pilot selected PPP projects. Okay, thanks for the video to our technical team. And now let me please invite you to watch the recording of Alexander Kubrakov. He is the head of Ukrainian state-owned agency Укравтодор, and he will present a detailed description of these projects, which you have seen just in this video, and why they make an optimal candidate for the first phase of the PPP road program. Please, can you turn on the recording?
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm grateful that you joined this meeting dedicated to the launch of Ukrainian road PPP program. My speech is recorded, but I will be ready to answer all your questions. Please use email on the slide. In 2020, the road sector became the state priority, the first time during the Ukrainian independence. Here you can see a graph for the last 10 years. Here you can see our basic plan for 2021. We have more than 4,000 kilometers of roads in the great construction project for 2020, and we are planning to repair and build more than 6,000 kilometers in 2021. Our funding sources are limited to the following now: Road Fund, state target programs, financing under the state guarantees, loans from international financial organizations. In addition to this, we consider PPP to be a promising way to attract additional funding to our ambitious projects. PPP is an extended PRC contract in which the vendors would be able to build their own roadside infrastructure. Usually, PRC focuses on maintenance and small repair. This time, it would be also involved in renovating the roads, repairing 61% of them, and improving their quality and safety. For example, we expect to see improving lighting on the roads outside of cities and new interchanges, including two-level junctions. Here you can see a map with all 6 pilot projects. In total, it's almost 1,500 kilometers long and connects Ukraine from west to east and from north to south. Most of the roads are Ukrainian first class, but they need massive improvements to become world's first class. 50,000 vehicles use these roads daily. The number are not big compared to Europe, but for Ukraine, this throughput is high. And I would like to say a bit more about each of the pilots. M29, M04, M18, Kharkiv, Dnipro, Zaporizhzhia. Total length 276 kilometers. 250 kilometers of road are in need of repairs. Initial capex around $370 million. This corridor is important for both international and domestic trade, as it connects main Ukrainian industrial centers. It is one of our key projects in 2020. The renovations are almost done. From 292 kilometers of the pilot roads, only 137 kilometers need to be repaired in Kyiv Oblast. This weekend, I drove on this road and I saw demand for modern roadside infrastructure on the way from Kyiv to Kharkiv. This road is essential for the country south, which means tourism and ports. These two port cities at south of Ukraine have a huge economic connections, but existing two lanes road that is honestly far from good state will be reconstructed to 4 lanes. During the past 30 years, this road had been destroyed by overload trucks. The priority of PPP project here is to protect the road from overloads. The concrete pavements option is also more promising in this direction. Initial capex around $310 million. One of the best and one of the most important roads in Ukraine. Projects suggest a widening of the road in some sections. This road connects Ukraine to the European Union. Initial capex around $370 million. The road leading to the border with Poland. For now, the average traffic is moderate, but with the state project to renovate border checkpoint, this road will be used much more often. Include important tourist destination in Lutsk, and you will have all conditions for the development of demanded roadside infrastructure. Initial capex around $240 million. We are finishing 77 kilometers of this road this year in the framework of the Great Construction Project. Still, 42 kilometers should be reconstructed and 9 kilometers of bypass constructed. Initial capex around $290 million. So all these projects are carefully selected and they are very important for our country. We would be happy to partner with you in creating a new quality road network in Ukraine. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, that was a good presentation of the first pilot road projects which were available for investment. And now at this stage, when you already heard the description of the program and the details about it, and I have seen the videos showing the actual roads, which might be interesting opportunities for investment. At this stage, we will have the questions and the answers section. And we have already received several really interesting questions, and so please submit more, and we'll be ready to answer, because we have time till we have like additional 40 to 50 minutes to answer your questions. And to get things started, I will ask Oleg Kudashov I would like to ask about the timeline of the project, so that our distinguished guests, they understand what's the next steps, what to do next, and also many questions for here are devoted to where they can get the information in details, and how can they contact to receive the presentation and so on. So probably you may address this, Oleg.
Yes, thank you, Maria. So yes, if my colleagues can put up the website, please, on the screen. So this program, thank you. So this program has a website which you all will be able to access. Right now, you can see on the screen the address at which you can access this website. And the website will be in both languages, Ukrainian and English, and it will contain information, basic information about what the program is all about. It has a place for you to leave your contact and send your questions. And all of us from Ukravtodor, from the ministry, will be able to see these questions and then respond to them and get back to you. And of course, all the materials from today's event will also be uploaded into this website, so that those of you or your colleagues who have not been able to participate, they will be able to see what transpired. And now maybe if we can scroll down to the section which talks about the timeline of this program. So this is, of course, very important. We understand that for all of you who are potentially interested and would like to make plans and to understand what comes next. The way that we see it is that until the end of this calendar year, we will finalize this preliminary feasibility and obtain internal approvals on the government side. So that the program can proceed to the next phase. The next phase, we call it, this is actually where the program kicks off. This is the project structuring phase. And we foresee this happening during the winter and spring of 2021 of next year. And this will include, this stage will include preparation of the feasibility studies by us, by the public side. Of these projects. It is also important under the legislation to do efficiency analysis to show that the projects provide benefits to the state. And all of that will, of course, be wrapped into comprehensive due diligence that we will be conducting. At this stage, we might also be reaching out to potentially interested investors to hear your views and opinions about what we're doing, because it's very important that as we structure the program and we come to the next stage, which is the tender preparation stage in the spring and let's say summer of 2021, we understand that the market perceives this program favorably in these projects and is prepared to participate in the tenders. So we see that development of the tender documentation, which includes instructions to bidders, draft PPP agreements, as well as preparation of the virtual data room, which will contain all relevant materials about the projects. All of this will be done during the spring and summer of 2021. And finally, after we complete the structuring phase and we obtain all the internal approvals, The tender announcement and the tender launch stage will take place in the fall of 2021. And this is where the potential bidders, of course, will have a chance now to show their qualifications in order to be pre-qualified for the projects. It's important probably to clarify that we foresee that the eventual the eventual private partners who will be developing these projects, they must of course have required experience and financial resources in order to implement these projects, because failure is not an option. And so we foresee a pre-qualification stage. And then after the pre-qualification stage, the companies that will be pre-qualified for the project, they will have access to all project information, and they will have sufficient time. I'm very glad to say that now, because legislation has been improved recently. So bidders will have sufficient time to prepare their proposals and to submit their bids. So this is what the timeline looks like going forward. At this stage, let me pass it back to Maria and my colleagues. Perhaps other questions have come in, which we will be glad to try to answer.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Oleg. Thanks. And I will ask the technical IT team if you could please make it the full screen address of this website, so everyone who would like to go there and see and check it out for themselves, they can do it. So please just at some point of time put it on screen. And I go to the first question. It's from Pavel Kordala. And the question goes like this. Will there be any demand risk under the project agreement? Do you expect the loans under the PPP transactions to be covered by export credit agencies of EU countries? And which law will govern the project and funding agreements? So these are actually 3 questions instead of 1, but I think it's important. So who will answer?
Sure, I can start, and then we can go from there. So as you have heard, colleagues, it is not foreseen that in these projects there will be any demand risk for the private partner. In terms of the participation of credit agencies, we have not gotten this far in the process yet. But it is our anticipation is that the most extensive possible participation of international bidders and lenders and all other stakeholders who typically are involved in these projects is welcome. Of course, like I said earlier, from our side as the World Bank Group, we will also be looking how we can support these projects to the maximum possible of our ability. And in terms of the governing law, once again, let me just disclaim myself saying that remember that we're at the very early stages in this program. So we are presenting to you the results of the pre-feasibility assessment, which shows that these projects are commercially feasible and they're viable as PPP projects. As we go forward, we will be working on preparing the specifics, including governing law and all the other important provisions. As Taras has already said, the legal framework in Ukraine allows for all the things that international investors are used to seeing, such as compensation, fair compensation in case of early termination of the project. It also foresees foreign dispute resolution mechanisms, which can be in foreign jurisdictions. And so all of these things we will be working on from our side. We will make sure that everything that the projects contain when they go to the market will reflect best international practice.
Okay. Thank you very much, Oleg. I hope this answers the question. And the next one is from Jim Brook, Ukraine Business News. The question goes like this. Given problems with the green energy rates, what guarantees will be offered to PPP road investors that the toll rates will not change? So Oleg, Taras, please, some of you answer the question.
Sure. Well, first, I think it's important to mention that it is not foreseen that in these projects there will be toll rates. You have heard that we will be using the availability payment structure, and this is where the public side pays to the private investor, provided that the road is available for use by drivers. The question of tolling is important, and Bahir earlier alluded to that, but this is still some time away, because in order to put a proper tolling infrastructure, let's say, in place and choose the proper tolling approach to tolling, additional, let's say, studies and investigations need to be conducted. This is a very, let's say, sensitive issue. You know, from our side as the World Bank Group, we will be, of course, prepared to work with the government on identifying a model, if such a model will be applied in the future, that will ensure that if there is any tolling, then the toll rates are affordable, of course, first and foremost to users, and that the overall system has, let's say, the minimum potential cost. And if there are toll roads, then there must be alternative roads, free roads, which users can use instead if they don't want to pay tolls. So this is a very important question. It requires a lot of additional work, which will be done in the coming months and years. But for now, just once again, keep in mind that this program and these projects are not about tolled roads, and therefore this will not be part of the project. In terms of once again, which guarantees can be provided to potential investors and also by extension to lenders, Taras has described the road fund. This is an important mechanism which already exists. And from our side, and of course, we're supporting the government, and the government is making important also strides toward making the road fund, let's say, changing the way in which the road fund is set up, such that it can provide the maximum, let's say, possible assurance to private investors and to lenders that they will be paid these availability payments for these projects. Taras, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, thank you, Oleg. You're right. So, like, the thing is that this project are about availability payments. So, and the source for availability payments is the road fund. So, I think it's another type of PPP which we are trying to implement.
Okay, thank you, Oleg and Taras. So, as far as I understand, that is like the general sovereign risk we are talking about here, and not the rules of the game as it was in the case of green energy. So the question number 3, and I like it very much, it comes from Adriana Mertzva. Thank you. As the project will be brownfield in phase 1, what was the scope for the technical analysis of existing roads, like inventarization, examinations, surface ground drillings, and will the data be sufficient enough to evaluate the capex for rehabilitation? So, what's in your data rooms?
Thank you, Maria. So once again, let me restate that at this stage, we have done preliminary assessment. There has not been a very, let's say, detailed assessment to the extent that the colleague who is asking the question is foreseeing. That will be done at the next stage of project preparation. So at this stage, we have done sufficient analysis to look at the entire network, and we have looked at almost 2,000 segments of roads throughout Ukraine. We have looked at the strategy of the government, of the ministry, of Ukravtodor, everything that has been done to improve the road network. What are their plans to continue improving the road network? And on this basis, we have selected sections which, for example, require either complete rehabilitation because they're in very poor condition, but at the same time, they have high traffic and they connect important regions of the country. For example, they have a lot of accidents, let's say more than average on other road sections, they have other, let's say, priorities that they can fix if they're done as PPPs. And so at this stage, no very deep technical analysis has been done, but the level of cost estimate which we have performed with our technical experts is on the order of plus or minus 20 to 30% in terms of CapEx. So the numbers that you have seen, please don't take them literally, and you know that is how much that is going to cost. This is a preliminary estimate, which will be better developed and further developed during the project preparation stage in the coming months.
Yeah, Oleg, thank you very much. And Vladislav Krykly, Minister of Infrastructure of Ukraine, wants to comment on one of the questions. Vladislav, please, the floor is yours.
No, I just wanted to add to my colleagues regarding the tolling system. Yes, as Oleg highlighted, it's a very sensitive issue for us yet. So basically, we are starting working in these 6 pieces with brownfield projects. And after changes in the legislation, of course, we will add tolling system and the tolling payment system. But basically, we want to work with tolling system on the greenfield projects. We don't want to reinvent the bike. You know that it fits much better when you start with tolling system directly on the new projects, new roads. Because to maintain and to repair is one type of issues, and to build something particularly new is another approach, and we will deliver the best result, but in 2 ways and step by step. So first stage is brownfield and legal framework for this sustainable payments and guarantees from the state side. And the second stage is greenfield projects and the tolling system, which we will implement when all the users and the drivers will see the results that we will deliver to them. They will be much more negotiative and ready to cooperate with the state in the approach for the tolling payment system.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Minister. And now the next question, and actually it's the next and the next and the next. Where can I get the presentation materials to my email? Yes, please download the presentation materials. They are available on the website, which Beck presented just minutes ago. And I believe that it's not only these presentation materials, but many other interesting information and contact details for our speakers and the other officials. So the next question, it comes from anonymous attendee, and it sounds like Mr. Kudashov mentioned that PPP roads will be procured in a way that it will prevent a handful of companies will win the tenders over and over again. I think it concerns corruption or something like that. So is there already a strategy in place for that? If yes, could you please share it with us? Was answering.
Thank you, Maria. So I'll start, and then perhaps Taras and the minister can also add. As the World Bank Group, we have extensive experience throughout the world in preparing and then implementing these types of projects. So we will be deploying this expertise that we have developed. I can also point to the success of Olvia and Kherson pilot concession projects in the port sector, which, as Taras has mentioned, were just successfully completed this summer. And we have two international investors who bid for those projects and they won them. Those tender processes were conducted according to best international practice, and generally speaking, were praised in the market, as we know, because everybody from potential bidders, from local companies and foreign companies, had equal access to project documentation, and they were on equal terms and had opportunities, the same opportunities to prepare the most competitive bids. So we will continue implementing this know-how, this approach, with the ministry and with Ukravtodor in these projects as well, to make sure that everybody is on equal footing. It is true that, in order for the private investor to be able to implement successfully these types of projects, they need experience and they need expertise and they need financial resources. However, as a lot of you know, what happens in this market is that companies oftentimes form consortia. So this means that foreign companies can collaborate with companies who are present in the local market. They can form bidding consortia, and through this procedure, some of the companies that perhaps at this point in time don't have required experience, they can start participating in these projects, and they can also start acquiring this experience. I'll stop here if my colleagues want to add.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. And another question, I think you have already briefly touched this during the presentation. It's from Volodymyr Yaremko. Is it true that successful realization of this project will require changes to the budget law of Ukraine, in particular in part of providing for long-term financing involving state funds? What are the consultants' team plans for that?
I think that, okay, Taras is connected. I just will say politically is that we need the changes in the budget law, just to make possible to fill the budget, state budget, with this payments from tolling, for example, in the additional, what is second stage. And of course, we need the changes in the budget law. It's just the general frame, which we mentioned at the very beginning. So Taras maybe will add something more. But I would say that we have ongoing working on this budget law changes. So as I mentioned at the starting of this our meeting online, we expect that in nearest months, nearest future, it will be already adopted. Please, Taras.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. So yes, it's true. So in order to successfully implement the project, we have a basic framework. So we have a PPP law, which introduced the availability-based concept. So it's good, but of course we need to upgrade the budget code and to introduce the ring fence approach in order to give an opportunity to pay the availability payments first. So and as Minister mentioned, so this these amendments are underway. So it's among top priorities of the government, and hopefully by the end of this year, the required changes will be adopted. In the meanwhile, we are working on a feasibility study of all these projects, and of course it's important part of the legal framework, because it's pilots, and we will need to change some pieces of legislation, but the basic one is already in place. And the proof of that is successful launch and commercial close of 2 pilots in seaport sector. So here the Ministry of Infrastructure also relies on the support of other ministries, such as Ministry of Economy, which they really strong support this initiative, because it will open the door for direct foreign investors into Ukrainian economy. So, and also there is a dialogue with the Minister of Finance, and which is very constructive. So we hope and we believe and we are confident that this draft law will be approved soon. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Taras. I think you also addressed one of the questions posted by one of our attendees about the legislative acts that are expected to be amended. And so the next question, which I would ask our panelists to answer, will be from Akin Aydin. And the question goes like, what will be the currency for availability payment? And will be a sovereign guarantor for the availability payment by road fund?
Taras, maybe you can start and then I will support.
Yeah, sure. So thank you for your question. It's a good question. Yeah, so like as I mentioned, availability payments. So the source of availability payments is the road fund, and so all the income which come to the road fund. So 99% of the income is nominated in euros. So we don't have a forex risk in terms of income. So we can guarantee that the payment will be in place. And I think so. We discussed this with our partners, and so at the moment we think that the payments will be linked to hard currency. So it might be euro or dollar. We don't know yet what will be the entire amount or a part of it. So we are still in a discussion, but it will be paid in Ukrainian local currency, in hryvnia, but linked to the hard currency. So there will not be forex risk for investors. So please add, Oleg, something if you have.
Thanks, Taras. No, I think that's a comprehensive response. So everything that we're doing right now and will be doing over the coming months is that to prove to potential investors and lenders that the mechanism that we will put in place in the road fund will be bankable, and that future private partners who will be operating and maintaining the roads will not be subject to, let's say, undue risk of foreign exchange, which they will not be able to manage.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Taras and Oleg. And our next question is from Новое Время. It's Ukrainian media, and it's in Ukrainian, but I will translate it into English. How to avoid corruption risks when giving funds from the budget to private investors? So please answer.
Yes, I will try. I expected that you will, from Ukrainian media, asking the question Ukrainian, but anyway, let's answer in English. So, as mentioned, Oleg, IFC and our international partners have very strong red lines when we are organizing PPP projects. So the results we have delivered with two first pilot concession projects on the seaports, and now we have ongoing project for the ferry complex. No one will say that it was untransparent or we had any difficulties. Even more, the companies which have not won this concession projects, they came to the office and said, thank you very much. As participants, we were very lucky and very happy to see how transparent the process could be organized. So, and once more, I want to say much thanks to the IFC organizing and assisting us with these projects. The next is, of course, on the side of not only of our international coordination organizations like IFC and our big will to make this process transparent, but also we have in general this process very straight. So the consortium that could participate in these processes, we have no any limitations for the number of participants which will participate in these processes, and even more, the state will win and will have guarantees from the business for maintenance for this project for 15 years. I will say even more. We have much more risks when every year we are repairing the roads for the state budget payments, because it's much more difficult to control how often and how clearly these funds are spent on the particular programs. When we deliver and we are sharing all the risk with the business, with this consortium, which will maintain and repair these roads and maintain them for 15 years, the whole risks are on their side. So for the state, budget is much more clear, transparent, and much more expected what the expenditures will be during these 15 years. So not when you, year by year, you have some unexpected difficulties and new holes on the roads, and you need immediately to repair something, but the whole process is on the side of the investors.
Thank you very much, Minister. And probably I will now post the last question for today, and I think it's a good and forward-looking one. When do you expect the first road concession tender will be announced? So the date, do you have some date in mind?
Taras, do you want to take that?
Yes, please. So
from the very beginning. Okay, Taras, yes.
Yeah, so like it's according to our understanding, and we are trying our best to move forward as soon as possible. So we would like to launch the tender next year. I think it could be October, November. So we are targeting to launch the tender already. So.
But before we will adopt all the law, of course. So we will inform you every our lucky chance to show you how we are proceeding with this needs in the legislation frame.
So next year it is. And I thank to all our participants, to our guests, and to distinguished speakers for joining us today, for participating in this call. And I encourage you to please continue follow the website during the coming weeks and months to see the tender announcements, to find the information and the presentations. As we have heard today, the plan is really ambitious, and this initiative has support from the government, from the presidential office, from the international partners. It's carefully designed, and it provides interesting opportunities to become a part of the Ukrainian wide and large infrastructural development program. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Keep safe and stay in touch.
Stay safe and prepare your investments for Ukrainian projects.
Yeah. Thank you. With this, I say goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.